and welcome to the infamous Boca Grande, the place where millionaires winter and locals hang out during the summer because it is absolutely stunning here. We are at the end of the island, and if you have never been here, come on out. It's well, as you can see, it's stunning.
Good. Yeah. Ready? 2,
I'm ready.
3, 4.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. Here's one you can sing along with us. I know you know it. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back, no turning back. Though I may wander, still I will follow. Though I may wander, still I will follow. Though I may wander, still I will follow. No looking back, no looking back. Woo! Oh yeah. The world behind me, the cross before me. The world behind me, the cross before me. The world behind me, the cross before me. No looking back, no looking back, no looking back, no looking back. Woo!
As you can tell, my scenery has changed because it was too hot out there on the beach and I was sweating buckets. But here's what's amazing. So these two boys, twins perhaps, and actually it makes more sense to me, but not just twins. So the question is, where did the girls come from? Who did Cain and Abel marry? Well, tradition says in the Dead Sea Scrolls that Cain was born. If Cain and Abel are not twins, this is another theory, is that Cain had a twin sister, and so he married his twin sister. Well, then Abel, on the other hand, he was part of a triplets. He was the boy, and then there were two girls, and he married the sister closest to him. But then there was the question of, what do we do with the last sister? Who gets her? Now remember, you can't read this story from the modern Western point of view in 2020. This is the very first people. This is the first family. This is a whole series of firsts. Let's think about it. This was the first child, the first babies to ever be born onto the earth, and to be born babies, which meant that was the first time that a human being grew from inside the womb all the way up into a man and a woman. It was the first, how do you do life sort of a thing. So this was a whole new thing, not to mention it was the very first birth, the very first conception. So what do we do with it? We know the problem is we're not going to know all of the answers. You can do your digging like I did, and then you can piece together things, but to say exactly that this is exactly what happened, who knows? It's like my good friend Dina says when we go to Israel, I wasn't here 2,000 years ago, so who knows? But that's not the issue, to get bogged down with these kind of details. What is for us to glean from this part of the story, and I'm not going to go into the whole story this week because I want to deal with the sacrifices later on. But you got two brothers. This is the first set of brothers. The next set of brothers, you will see Jacob and Esau, you will see Isaac and Ishmael, you'll see Joseph and his brothers. And in all of the brother scenarios, it's usually the second brother, the baby brother, the last brother, who is trying to usurp the firstborn's authority, the firstborn's title, if you will. You see, Cain, he was the prince. He was to be the king. So like I had just said, Adam gave the tilling of the land to be a farmer to Cain. So he taught Cain this, and then he taught Abel how to be a shepherd. But here's what's interesting about their names. Now remember, Hebrew names emphasize their character. So Eve named Cain, you know, she's so glad that she possessed a man from the Lord, and that's what Cain's name means. Possession, to possess. So Cain was a possessor of the land. Well, Abel, on the other hand, his name means vapor, but it also could mean vanity. So what you have always been taught is that Abel was the good brother and Cain was the not so good brother. But when you break it down and look more into the Hebrew language, it is Abel whose name means vanity. He was more concerned with himself. And Cain, he was the worker. He was the builder, as we will see later on. So could it be that Abel really wanted Cain's title? He wanted Cain's spot? Let's see how the story unfolds. So we pick up in verse 3, and it says, "And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought an offering to the Lord." Now when it says, "and in the process of time," what that means is it's this undetermined amount of time. So we don't know when this happened. The boys could have been 120 years by this time. We don't know, but it was in the process of time. You see, in this story, there's a lot of silence. There's a lot of vagueness in this story. There's not a whole lot of detail. So in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought an offering to the Lord from the fruit of the ground. Now, why did they do that? Well, this is what's interesting. When you start putting the pieces together, Moses wasn't the first one to receive the commandments from God up on Mount Sinai. Remember, God dwelt with Adam and Eve. Yes, they were cast out of the garden, but God didn't cast Adam and Eve out of their lives. God knew Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel knew God. And God and Adam and Eve, they still communed. They still knew each other. God didn't withdraw his love because they sinned. And I'm going to show you this. He just pushed them out of the garden so that they wouldn't touch the tree or even eat of the tree of wisdom, because then they would have become immortal. So out of his loving kindness, he pushed them out of the garden, but he still remained their loving father. So in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought an offering. It is mentioned in the Jewish Midrash that this was the 14th of Nisan. Nisan is the month, is in the spring, and would be our months of March and April. Interesting though, this is the same time period, fast forward, of the Exodus and the Passover, the Passover lamb. This is then also when Jesus was crucified at Passover, the 14th of Nisan. So you take all this and you go all the way back to this was when this particular offering happened. Let that sink in for a second. What I just said was, at the time of this offering, it was the 14th of Nisan, which later down the road would have been the time of a Passover, March and April. The Passover meaning the Passover lamb. So, how did the boys know what to bring? Here's what's interesting. So God gave commands to Adam, and if he had not given commands to Adam, then the boys would not have been, Cain would not have been punished. You see, you can't be punished for something you don't know you did is wrong. So at this particular time, they bring an offering. But Cain brings an offering from the ground. What did he bring? Well, the ancient writings say he brought flaxseed. Why did he bring flaxseed? Flaxseed was the richest, the most powerful element of the ground there was. It was the most expensive. It was the best of the best. But it wasn't the best of the best of the flaxseed. But he brought the best that he had according to the elements from the ground. Now, if Abel wanted to bring the best of the best of the best, wouldn't he have brought an offering of cattle? And then the best of his cattle, because cattle was worth way more than a lamb. But he did bring a lamb, and the lamb with the fat, and the best and the unblemished of his sheep. So he did bring the best of the best. It just wasn't the highest quality that he could have brought. Now, Cain, he brought the highest quality that he could bring, but it wasn't the best of the best. So then what went south? What then is the real problem here? I'm glad you asked. So when we look back on it, and the Lord turned, okay, and Abel also brought, this is verse 4, from the firstlings of his flock and from its fat. And the Lord turned to Abel and his offering, but he did not turn to Cain and his offering. And Cain was very, very angry, and his countenance fell. Cain was angry. The word in Hebrew for anger and to be angry is a masculine form. Follow this, because I want to show you what's going to happen. And the Lord said to Cain, why are you so angry? And why has your countenance fallen? Behold, if you do well, you will be accepted. And if you do not do well, sin sits waiting at the door. And its desire is to possess you, but you can rule over it. This is the very first time sin is ever mentioned in the Bible. But this is what's interesting, is the word for sin, hava, is a feminine word. Anger is a masculine. Why does that even matter? Because when it says it's waiting to devour you, the ancient writing is he is waiting to devour you. His is waiting to devour you. It's not it's in the original language. So that means it's masculine. So what is waiting to devour you? Not just any random sin. Could it be someone or something? But we'd look back on the writing, and it says that Cain was very, very angry. What was he angry about? Why was he so angry? Okay, so his offering wasn't the best this week. Big deal. So what? There's got to be more to the story. What made Cain so angry? Let's bring it home. What makes you angry? Remember, Eve had a dream. Now, whether that is true or not, I don't know. So Cain and Abel had pretty much of a tumultuous sibling relationship. They were angry about who gets to marry the last daughter. Who gets to do what? Who is the better son? Or did they? You see, that's the thing. There's a lot of questions in this story. But what we can grasp from this story is two things. God comes to Cain and he says, what's going on? Why are you so angry? What a loving God. So he comes into Cain before there is a murder, before Cain erupts, before Cain does anything he wishes he hadn't done, or maybe he's glad that he did, I don't know. But before any of that happens, when it comes down to attitude, anger is an attitude. Attitudes always precede behavior. And right in the beginning, God gets Cain and he says, look, why are you so angry? Let's talk about this. Let's get to the bottom of it. What makes you angry? Abel made him angry. For whatever reason, he and his competition with Abel, they were competing together. He made him angry. So once again, Abel got the upper hand, which made Cain very, very angry. And what does God do? God comes to him in the midst of his emotions, in the midst of his big emotions. Remember, I've said it before, big emotions do not scare God. Rather, he is drawn to them. He comes into those big emotions. And so he tried to counsel, he tried to, like a loving father, sit Cain down and say, come on. But what's amazing about this verse is he says, you can't overcome it because this anger wants to possess you. This hatred wants to possess you. It wants to take you over, but you can overcome it if you want to. If you want to. Now, you and I have had people in our lives where they just make us angry. Or perhaps this morning you're listening to this and there's somebody in your life that you're just angry with them. You're angry at something they did, something that they said. You just can't get over it. You're just angry. You wish you could get over it, but you can't. It just can't be resolved for whatever reason, and you're angry. And God comes to you, and he comes to me in that anger, and he's like, come on, you can overpower this. You can overcome this attitude before it gets into something bigger and deeper, before it destructs, before this anger destroys your life. Well, how do you do that? How do we do that? I'm glad you asked. Because it's much more, this story is much more than about an offering being accepted and another offering not being accepted. I'll get into that next week. But what first comes out is this problem with Cain's anger, this sibling rivalry that comes out. And in 1 John chapter 3, verse 8, or I'm going to start in verse 7, it says, little children, you must not be deceived by anyone. The one who does righteousness is righteous, just as the one is righteous. The one who continues sinning is from the devil, because the devil has been sinning from the beginning. The Son of God was revealed for this, so that he would destroy the works of the devil. You see, here's a question. If Satan could get into the garden and visit Adam and Eve, where's Satan now? Where's Satan in this story? Is Satan talking to Cain, perhaps? Like he does with us when we're angry? And so sometimes you end up, or you find yourself, you're holding on to that anger when you could just let it go to God. But no, you fume and you steam and you fret and you fuss because it keeps going around and around and around in your head. Is Satan keeping that going for you? Is Satan keeping that anger alive? In my belief, I think that's more part of the backstory of Cain's story. It doesn't say that Satan was there. That's just what I believe could have been happening. So what about today? Who are we listening to? Are we listening to the fatherly advice that says, look, you can overcome this? Or are we listening to why we should be still angry at this particular person? Listen to this. No one has been begotten from God continues sinning because his seed remains in him, and he is not able to sin because he has been born of God. The children of God and the children of the devil are made known by this. Everyone who does not do righteousness and the one who does not love his brother is not from God. I can tell, and I know you can too, who has a deep relationship with God by their actions, by how they love one another, by how they treat their neighbor, by how they treat their spouse, by how they treat their children, by how they treat their friends. Are you angry with your friends? Are you always blaming your friends? You see, Cain ends up blaming. He ends up not taking responsibility for his actions, but he blames it on Abel. He blames it on his anger. He blames it probably on his dad or his mom for sinning. Who knows? But he blames. He never takes responsibility. Do you? Do I? Listen to this. Chapter 3, verse 11. For this is the message that you heard from the beginning, that we should love one another, not as Cain, who was from evil and slew his brother. And for what reason did he slay him? Because his works were evil and his brothers righteous. And do not marvel, brothers, if the world hates you. We know that we have passed over out of death into life because we love our brothers. The one who does not love remains in death. Everyone who hates his brother is a murderer. And you know that no murderer has eternal life abiding in him. By this we know his love, because that one did lay down his life on our behalf, and we are obligated to lay down our lives on behalf of our brothers. See, the problem was attitude. It was Cain's anger. My friends, don't let anger destroy your heart. We can't allow anger to destroy our inner peace, our inner spirit. And it's so easy, especially nowadays with all of this hate and prejudice and racism going around. It's easy to get angry. But listen, God says to you and I, you can overcome it. We don't have to be angry. We don't have to be. But we choose to be. So my question this morning is, what do you choose? To be angry or to love? To lean into God's wisdom and counsel, or into your own? And into listen to the tape recorder of Satan? It's a choice. And at the crossroads of this story, Cain had a choice. We know the end of the story. I'll get into that next week. But at this point, Cain didn't know the end of the story. You and I don't know the end of our story or the situation you and I may be in at this moment. Your situation, what you are angry about right now, what you may be angry about right now, you don't know the end of the story yet. But what I want to tell you this morning is lean into God's wisdom and hear him say to you, you can overcome it because it wants to possess you. But my friends, God is bigger and greater. Lean into him. Choose him. I love you.